Are you still working on the same bolt?
Yep.
How big is it?
Oh, it's about 3 miles long, it seems like.
The one nice thing about this house as far as car space is that when we bought it, we got them to pour us an extra wide driveway. So we can actually pull cars in and out of the garage even when all our cars are parked. But eventually we want to get a house with a bigger garage, of course. Hey guys.
Hello everyone. So in the last video, the last Hyundai video, we put on the intake pipe, changed the oil real quick. Whenever we got back, realized there was an oil leak and a coolant leak that we already knew about. I've already seen the spots. I wasn't sure where it was coming from. In the process of doing the oil change, I found the oil leak. It's coming from the oil cooler that Hyundai did not replace whenever they replaced my engine. I guess they just used the one that was on like the junkyard engine. And it's leaking every time you start it up. I mean, it just pours oil. So I got a new one of those. We're gonna replace that, and I'm gonna try to find out where this coolant leak is coming from. Got a radiator pressure tester, so we can put pressure to it without having it run, so we can find out where the coolant leak's coming from. I suspect it's one of the lines going to the turbo. I don't think they replaced like any of the crush washers. So yeah, we're just gonna get into it, figure out what's what.
That's what we're doing today.
Alright, so the first thing I'm going to do is pull off the intake so I can get access down to the turbo. That way when we're putting pressure to it, we can kind of see and watch wherever the leak is coming from. I mean, in the last video I topped off the coolant and haven't driven it at all except for that little short drive after we replaced the intercooler pipe. And it's already, I mean, it's gone down that much, so obviously it's leaking while it's sitting still and leaking while it's running. So we'll just pop this off, pop the intake off, and then we'll put some pressure to it. Oh, I also want to check the clamps going from the intercooler to the throttle body, just to make sure those are tight. I mean, since they left all the other ones loose, I should probably check them. Just to be sure.
It's a rainy day today. Perfect day to work on the car.
It is a rainy day, but it's warm. It's nice. It's gotta be like 60-something degrees.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost up to 60 in here now with the garage
It was
door
colder in here. I mean, you can see the fog on the windows. So it was cooler in here than it was outside. Still might have to get at it from underneath. I've never used one of these before, so I'm gonna read it. So you only want to put as much pressure as what the system holds, or as what the cap holds, which is 1.1 bar. I don't know what that is in PSI. Look it up. Unless maybe this has bar on it. It doesn't have bar. I'll have to look it up. Alright. We have to see which one of these fits the neck. Pretty sure it's not going to be this giant massive one here. Nope. It'll be one of these adapters, which is not that one. It is that one. Okay, so 1.1 bar is about 16 psi. So we're going to pump this thing up to 16.
There it goes.
Like I said before, it basically simulates what happens whenever it's running. So you can pump this up to 16 pounds. There's a gauge on here. You just pump it and it pressurizes the system, which is what happens whenever, you know, everything's circulating and it's operating, and then you can look for the leaks without, you know, burning yourself or anything like that. So once the adapter's on there, put this on. I don't know why it's not sealing. Again, I have no idea what I'm doing. Alright, so we're right at the 15 to 16 pound mark. So this thing should have pressure on it. Theoretically, we ought to be able to find where this leak is coming from. Heater hoses look good. I don't see anything leaking from that line. I'd say it's already bled down a little bit. Where are you losing pressure from? That looks good. That looks good. I'm going to jack it up and go underneath. Seems like both of those are cool.
Really?
Yeah. I guess that makes sense. It's got a feed and a return. I just don't know where the oil line's coming from. I'm pretty sure that's it. No. You get it up on ramps, drain the... Or can't get it up on ramps because the intake's out of it. Put the intake back on, put it on ramps, drain the coolant. Try to get there's a crush washer on either side of those, so I need to replace those crush washers. That's where it's leaking from.
Okay.
I'm just going to replace both of them since they're both right there.
You think that'll take care of it?
Which one it's leaking from. Yeah, I mean, there's only...
What about the oil? Wasn't it leaking oil too?
Yeah, we got to replace the oil cooler.
Okay.
But the coolant needs to be drained to do both of those.
Fun, fun!
But I want to put the intake back on because I don't have enough room to get my jack underneath it over here. So I'll toss the intake back on so we can drive it up on the ramp and just make it a little bit easier.
Okie dokie.
Putting it all the way back on or putting it on super tight, just enough to get it up on the ramps. Now we get to drain the coolant. I have no idea where the coolant drain is on this, but I'm sure I'll find it. But not without removing some under trays. No idea where it is. There it is. I think it might be easier to get it from the top.
So what are you doing now?
Tighten the plug back up. So now I just have to figure out what size the bolts are that hold the coolant pipes going to the turbo. Looks like they're an 18 millimeter. I just gotta get those loose. It might actually be easier to go at it with a wrench. I'll try to get an 18 millimeter wrench to go on there. Very tight, space-wise. The bolt is not that tight, however. Get a stubby one. Stubby ratcheting wrenches. Get you some. Cool looking. Trying to make the least amount of mess possible. Sounds like it's going into the bucket. Mm-hmm. Alright. So yeah. This little crush washer right here, this one or the one on the other one, is what I believe to be my problem. There's actually two of them. So there's one that sits here, and then this goes through, you know, the pipe, and then there's another one on this side. We're gonna have to pry the pipe out of the way to get to it. But I'm gonna go ahead and take the bottom one off. I'm gonna replace both of them while we're down here because I couldn't tell for sure which one was leaking. But since they're both right on top of one another, we're just gonna replace them both. Maybe this bottom one is tight. think I have to take this whole pipe loose in order to get to that one on the back side. Maybe I'm not going to replace that bottom one. It is awfully tight. Alright, I broke it loose. I'll switch to the stubby one so I can actually get my hands down there.
I hope that's going in the...
Majority of this.
Uh-oh, did some of it go on the floor?
Yeah, we're gonna have a mess to clean up.
Yikes.
The rest of the day we'll be cleaning the garage.
What happened?
One of the crush washers fell. Bolt number 2. I can't tell. I don't know which one was leaking.
I think probably the other one.
I mean, I would say I don't know why they didn't replace them, but I do know why they didn't replace them. It's because they, you know, the turbo was attached to the engine. It was all pulled out as an assembly, so they just put it all back in as an assembly.
Mm.
You know, dealership, they're just, you know, getting it done as quick as possible. They don't replace things like crush washers that might be a pain in the ass to get to when the engine's in the car. So I can't blame them 100%. I'd like to. Here's the other one that was stuck on there. One of them actually fell in my coolant bucket, so that's cool. Yeah, there's the other one. So I don't have factory replacements for these, which is what really you should have. What I do have, however, is just a big universal assortment. So hopefully there will be ones in here that will work.
Do you think this will be good enough?
Oh yeah. I don't know if that's accurate. Let me look at the other one. I think the other one has more. That's way too big.
What? You don't have any that'll fit?
I don't have the right size. There's some weird metric size.
Are we gonna have to order some?
Maybe. Actually, maybe too big. Well,
Gonna have to order some, huh?
yeah. Problem is, it's Sunday. At least the car's in the garage enough to close the door. Because Hyundai parts department is not open today. But what we can do, since the coolant is already drained, is replace that oil cooler.
Sweet.
So, as I said, the car had 2 leaks. It had the coolant leak, which was coming from these. I'm pretty sure that's where the coolant leak was coming from. And now we're going to be waiting on parts for that. But the other leak, oil leak, was coming from this oil cooler. So basically, the stud that your filter screws onto goes up through there, bolts it to the block. You got 2 coolant hoses that come in right here, run through this sandwich plate, cools the oil down. I don't know in theory how well it works. In the Talon, I actually converted it into a air-to-air oil cooler, so it's got lines, AN lines that come out, go to an oil cooler, whatever. But yeah, this thing is just spewing, and you cannot get this gasket from Hyundai by itself. You have to replace the whole thing. But these are on eBay for like about $100, and it is a genuine Hyundai part. So we'll go ahead and work on getting the old one off. So we'll work on that since we're stuck waiting on parts for this.
So I'll come under there with you.
Get this out of the way. We have to pull the oil filter off. All right. Good?
Yeah, I got you.
Yeah, so the nut that holds that filter housing on evidently is a 30 millimeter. Let's see if the internet was correct. Yeah, feels like it is a 30 millimeter. Oh, actually, before I do that, the two coolant hoses, you pull the two coolant hoses off first. That way the whole thing's, in place while you're pulling the coolant hoses off. You're not fighting it while it's loose, so we'll try to get those off first. And they are in a pain in the ass spot to get to. So one of them's actually not too bad. It's right here in the front. I need different pair of pliers though. There we go. More coolant, awesome. All right, so that's one hose off there. The other one, it's a little harder to get to, but it's right next to it.
Do you need my help?
We saw on the other one. I don't know.
My tiny hands?
Maybe. Let me see if I can't find a way to get it from the top. I'm gonna have to get it from the bottom.
I'm gonna try again from the top. Were you just filming my fat body the whole time? Everything's so tight in here.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I could get it if you had some shorter pliers. Are you sure you don't have any shorter pliers?
I'm sure. And then just push it.
True.
You know what I mean?
Those hooked ones might be best.
Yeah, the 90-degree one, they might be.
Yeah.
We'll see. I think I might have got it up enough. Yeah, let's see.
Did you get it?
Yep.
Yay!
Now I just gotta get the hose off. Alright, well the clamp's off of it anyway, so I'm gonna try to get this bolt out of it. And I need an extension.
Are you still working on the same bolt?
Yep.
How big is it?
Oh, it's about 3 miles long, it seems like. Oh, there it goes. So, in case you were wondering, that's what your oil filter screws on to. That screws in to the engine. Neat. So now, the only thing holding that in is that other hose.
What happened?
I can't get the hose off.
You want me to get it?
No.
You finally got it off? Yay!
Got it off. There you go. If your turbo Hyundai Veloster is leaking oil, this is probably why.
Oh.
This here.
Yay!
Old and leaky, new and not leaky for hopefully another 70,000 miles, and won't have the car. I need to clean this up. It is recommended that you use some Loctite on here, but I do need to clean it up a little bit because it's covered in oil and stuff. So I'm gonna go brake clean this real quick, dry it off, and get this thing put back on. Alright, I'm also gonna clean up underneath where this thing seals, where this gasket seals. I need to clean it up under there and everything. It's no wonder that thing was leaking. It must have come out of there because all that buildup and gunk. I mean, the gasket should have been covering it. There's no way that should have been built up underneath there. So definitely where the oil leak was coming from. Like I said, I'm just going to try to get this as cleaned up as I can, just so I can make a good seal. Because I really don't want to fight those hoses again, ever. Go up there, just like so. I get to get the hoses back on. I don't know what the best plan of attack is here. Maybe get the bolt started?
I would get the hoses put on the tubes. And then maybe get the bolt started.
See, the problem is there's like no slack in it.
In what?
In the hose. Looks like I kind of need that in place and to hold still while I try to...
Oh, I see.
Yeah, I'm gonna do that.
So put the bolt first?
Yeah, so... Yeah, I'm gonna run the bolt up in there, just a couple threads, just to kind of hold this thing in place while we put the hoses back on. And once the hoses are on and attached, I'll pull the bolt back out, Loctite the threads, and then torque it to spec once it's back on there. No Loctite just yet. Like I said, we're just gonna get it to hold everything in place. I'm so paranoid I'm gonna pinch this gasket. I keep pulling it back down just to check. Oh, cool. Well, I got it on there. I just got to get it all the way, the rest of the way down. But it is started at least. I think that's good enough. As long as there's enough for there for the clamp to hold.
Mosquito, what are you doing here? Did you get it?
Almost. I just need to get it to come down just a little bit more. Taking the bolt back out so I can Loctite it. Oh, and I also have to put a little bit of oil on this seal, it says. Alright, so you're gonna put a little bit of oil around that seal, then we're gonna torque it down 41 foot-pounds. So get the torque wrench ready to go, get some oil on that seal.
How are you going to put oil on the seal? You can still reach it?
Uh-huh. Yeah, I took the bolt out, so it was just kind of dangling there, and I
okay.
should be able to get my finger up there. Just gonna use a little bit of medium thread locker, the blue. Hopefully I never have to take this thing back out again, but if you do, you don't want to use red Loctite, you want to use blue. Strong enough to hold it, but you can still get it loose with an impact gun if you ever have to. I'll just put a little bit of Loctite. I forgot I have to put some oil on the, on the seal. Should have done that first. Just get some on your finger, rub it around that seal, just so it's not going up there dry. I don't really know how much you're supposed to use. Honestly, it didn't say anything about it in the manual, but...
I think usually if you can just see some in all the threads, it's probably fine.
Yeah. I mean, you don't want this thing backing out on you, that's for sure. Because you'll lose your oil filter. And thus all your oil pressure, and then there goes your engine. So don't want it to back out. There it goes. Alright, and she's torqued.
Yay! So now all we have to do is wait for the crush washers?
Yep, I need to go ahead and put the oil filter back on. I did get a new oil filter. I didn't want to put that one back on. Same thing as with that other gasket. Just use a little bit of oil on it. Just helps it seal. A little bit of oil in the filter because we can on this application. Some cars, like the Talon, the oil filter goes on vertically.
Horizontally.
Horizontally. It goes on horizontally. So if you put oil in the filter before you put it on, you make a huge mess. Luckily, this one goes on vertically. All right. So hopefully, can you get a good shot of that? The new housing, coolant hose is back on, new filter. Hopefully, fingers crossed, that'll take care of the oil leak. Just gonna be waiting on the crush washers and the new bolts for the turbo, and then that should take care of the coolant leak.